When it comes to being a safe driver, there's a lot more to it than not using your phone and sticking to the speed limit. A lot of it kicks off before you even start the engine. So today we thought we'd give you a few tips on how you can be a safer driver before hitting the road. And it all starts with the seating position. This can really impact your driving, both control of the vehicle and also how you fare if you are unlucky enough to have a crash. The priority here is to make sure you can see and reach everything without having to duck, dive and weave. As a general rule, you should be able to put your arms out and rest your wrists on top of the steering wheel. So I'm actually a fraction far away. Bring it forward. That's about on the money. And the other thing, you don't want your seat back on too much of an angle because you risk submarining or sliding under the seatbelt in a crash. And don't get too close to the steering wheel. All modern cars have an airbag and they're not the fluffy, soft things that Hollywood would have you imagine. These things can come out with a huge bang and actually cause minor injuries. The upside is that they can save your life. So don't sit with your face right near the wheel. As much as anything, it doesn't give you proper control of the vehicle. Speaking of which, your hands should be at roughly 10 to 2 on the wheel. Now, there are a few schools of thought. Some people say 9 and 3 to account for an airbag potentially popping out, but 10 and 2 is where it feels more natural. It's also where most of the car makers put the grab points on the wheel. Now from there, you can take evasive action quickly without having to adjust your grip. The height of the wheel is also crucial, so too low, could bang into your knees. Too high, you might not see the controls. Get it right, you're ready to go. With the headrest as a driver, you'll never have to use it. Well, almost never. It's mainly there to catch your head in a crash, so make sure it's at the right height. Next step is to make sure you can see around the car. Some cars have blind spots, but for the most part you should be able to set the mirrors up so you can see most of what's going on behind you. So theoretically you should be able to set them up to start in the right hand mirror, follow it all the way through to the interior rear vision mirror and then off to the left hand side. And a good guide is to make sure those side mirrors are just beyond the edge of the car. Before you go, it's also worth checking the rest of the car is right to go. There are some obvious ones, like ensuring you don't have loose items. That means checking the rear for phones, shoes, kids' toys or anything that could end up in the front. And remember that if you do have a crash, whatever's in the car is going to continue at that speed until it hits something. So something like that in the back of the head at 60 or 70 k's an hour isn't going to tickle. And it goes without saying to make sure occupants are belted and seated correctly. Feet up on the dash can lead to big injuries if an airbag goes off. And it's a good idea not to let kids sleep up against the rear doors. Some cars have airbags in those doors and they can do a lot of damage to young heads. Speaking of kids, check your owner's manual to see whether you're allowed to have a kid's seat in the front. In many cars you can't. So a lot of it's common sense, but spending a minute or so to get those basics right can make all the difference to your comfort and safety.